To make it easier to see this presentation, you can maximize your screen by clicking the little box that looks like this in the bottom right-hand corner of the video. So go ahead and click that icon now, and we'll get this webinar started, hosted by Darren Sugiyama and LionSmart Capital. We hope you enjoy this presentation.
Hey guys, Darren Sugiyama here, CEO and founder of LionSmart Capital, the most transparent premium financing intermediary firm in the life insurance industry. So in today's webinar, I'm going to be reviewing several different options for a client who has a net worth above $20 million and also has an IRA worth more than $1 million. Now, everyone knows that when Generation 2 inherits the IRA, they're going to get double taxed, first with estate taxes, and then again with income taxes. And in California, where I live, that's 70.18% of the IRA's value that will go to Uncle Sam. And even if you're in a state like Texas or, say, Florida, where there is no state income tax, Generation 2 will still take a 62.2% tax hit when they inherit their parents' IRA. Now, I know there's several firms out there that offer solutions for large IRAs, rolling them over into a structure where the funds end up in a life insurance policy. And some of them do, cash balance plans. Some of them use a profit sharing plan in conjunction with an ILIT. And some of them even have a setup where you can reposition the qualified funds inside a life insurance policy and then borrow the money to pay the taxes. Kind of like maybe like a non-premium financing arrangement, which is great. But I haven't seen anyone out there doing a real mathematical comparison showing all of these options side by side. So that's why I've created the IRA Bailout Platform. This really encompasses all of these different options and fairly compares each option really side by side. Similar to why LionSmart Capital offers several different premium financing loan models, we actually offer 7 different loan designs now, depending on the client's unique set of circumstances. And we also offer 18 different lenders on our platform as well. Some of them even allow real estate to be used as collateral. So our IRA Bailout Plan platform also offers multiple different solutions for these different types of clients that have these funds kind of trapped inside IRA structures. And each one is for a very specific type of client. Some clients, they want to really minimize the amount that's going to go to Uncle Sam, and they don't mind setting up what I would consider kind of a complex structure with multiple entities in order to do so. And then other clients want something simpler where they don't have to set up an extra LLC or a profit sharing plan. And some clients want the option to be able to tap into the cash value of the policies in the future, whereas others are strictly doing this for estate tax planning purposes. So that's why, depending on the client's goals, we sometimes use an IUL, sometimes we'll use a whole life policy, sometimes even a current assumption UL product. And with my unique premium financing components in each of these solutions, you can now offer your client something that no other firm would be able to execute. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this webinar started. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of case study here. This couple has a $50 million net worth and they have a $4 million IRA. This particular couple does not need the IRA funds for their own personal retirement. They have their retirement income taken care of through other assets. And so they were really planning on just willing their $4 million IRA to their adult children. And so that's where the IRA Bailout Plan platform comes in. I'm going to go through several different options for this particular couple, things they could do with that $4 million IRA. And several of these different options do involve the sale of a life insurance policy. So from a tax standpoint, these IRA funds, when Generation 2 inherits them, G2 is going to get hit with 40% in estate taxes. And because this couple lives in California, Generation 2 is going to be at the highest income tax bracket, which puts them at 50.30% in both federal and California state income tax. With this particular $4 million IRA, if they were to die, say immediately, of that $4 million IRA, they're going to go Uncle Sam $1.6 million in estate taxes, which would leave them with $2.4 million left over. But then that $2.4 million is going to get hit with income tax in the amount of $1.2 million, which means that Generation 2 is going to net $1.19 million of the $4 million IRA value. So you're talking about 70% of that $4 million IRA value ends up in Uncle Sam's pocket, and less than 30% ends up in Generation 2's pocket. So this is really where the IRA bailout plan comes into play. So again, as I said before, we're going to go through several different options for the client. The first one involves actually purchasing life insurance with those pre-tax dollars. So option one within the IRA bailout plan structure is the client could set up a brand new LLC, and that LLC would be the plan sponsor of a profit sharing plan. In this scenario, the husband and wife would be the only members in the LLC. They would be the only employees of this LLC, and the business purpose of this LLC is to manage the family's wealth, similar to, say, like a family office. So it does have a legitimate business purpose. If the couple has another company, another active income earning company that has employees, this particular LLC would not conflict with the business purpose of the other family owned business. So there's no affiliated services issues. This is a completely standalone business, has nothing to do with any current business that they have. This client could then roll over that $4 million IRA into the profit sharing plan. And then inside the profit sharing plan, they could buy life insurance. With a $4 million IRA value, we would structure this so that the first 4 years of the life insurance policy would be funded with an annual premium of $1 million. So 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. And then in year 5, we would then use an ILIT to buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan at a pretty substantial discount. With this particular case, you're talking about a 64% discount. Now, I know a lot of IRA rescue type of programs, they will talk about only getting about a 20% discount, sometimes even only a 15% discount. The reason we can offer such a drastic, deep discount on the buyout of that life insurance policy is really based on the policy design. We use a different type of policy with a different type of design that is going to incorporate premium financing a little bit later on in the policy. So first 4 years, again, $1 million of premium goes in. The cash value after 4 years with this particular product from this particular carrier is really unique in the sense that it offers a very high death benefit and a lower than normal cash value, which in most circumstances you would think, well, that sounds like a negative if there's such low cash value in the very beginning. In this particular scenario, it's actually an advantage because when we buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan with the ILIT, we are getting a much deeper discount. Again, in this case, over 64% discount versus a 15 or 20% discount if you were to use an average IUL or whole life policy. So very, very unique. Then in year 6, we are going to introduce 1 year of premium financing. In this scenario here, we're going to inject an additional $2 million of premium into the contract. And now that the life insurance contract is out of the profit sharing plan, again, is owned inside the ILIT. The ILIT would then borrow the money from the third-party lender, right, from the bank. The bank would then fund the $2 million annual premium one time into the life insurance policy. When the ILIT buys the policy out of the profit sharing plan, from boxes and arrows standpoint, the ILIT is putting money into the profit sharing plan. And those funds are going to be used to pay for the interest only expense on the financed premium. And I've got a full ledger that breaks down the full details of all of that. Okay, in this structure here, this is going to generate by age 90 a little over $21 million of death benefit based on that $4 million IRA. So if we compare the traditional IRA to, say, a Roth conversion to this IRA bailout plan, using this newly formed LLC and the profit sharing plan, essentially here's what it looks like. The summary page here, the blue line there represents what happens if they just leave the $4 million in the traditional IRA. The orange line there represents if they do a Roth conversion with that $4 million. And then the green line shows you what the benefit to Generation 2 is on an ongoing basis for 30 years if they opt for this one option within the IRA Bailout Plan platform. If they're going to use this type of structure, it does involve a TPA. We have 7 different TPAs to choose from now. And we pick the TPA that's most appropriate based on the specific size of the profit sharing plan. In terms of TPA fees, it really varies depending on the TPA that we use. So these are kind of approximate numbers, roughly $3,000 to set up the profit sharing plan, and then approximately $3,000 per year to administrate the profit sharing plan. Again, because we really custom build this depending on what the client's needs are, then the size of the case, etc. That's going to dictate not only the insurance carrier we use, but the product category we use, the specific life insurance product that we use, as well as the TPA that we use. So again, this is one of several different options that the client has if they want to reposition those IRA funds outside their taxable estate and use leverage within a life insurance policy. Again, very, very unique. I've seen several different programs out there that do something very similar to this, but what they don't have is the unique premium financing platform that Landsmark Capital has. Again, injecting finance premium later on in the game makes a lot of sense, largely because typically there's not going to be any need for any outside collateral the way that a traditional premium financing arrangement would work, because you have 4 years of non-finance premium entering the life insurance contract unencumbered by any third-party debt. So by year 6, when we inject that additional annual premium in there and finance it, the policy value will serve as the sole collateral on that loan. The other thing as well is that when the IRA buys the policy out of the profit sharing plan, the IRA is injecting cash back into the profit sharing plan. But then what we're trying to do is strip the value out of that profit sharing plan, get it back outside the taxable estate. So when the interest on the premium financing loan is serviced, the client would take a drawdown from the profit sharing plan, pay the income taxes on that amount, and that a net amount left over is what would be used to service the premium financed interest, the interest due. And again, I've got full ledgers that explain step by step by step. We're just going to start off talking concepts. Okay, so that's option number 1. Option number 2 is to do a premium finance life insurance conversion. Think of this like a Roth conversion, except we're not using a Roth IRA. We are pulling the money out of the traditional IRA, paying the taxes, and then repositioning the net amount into a premium finance life insurance policy outside the taxable estate, inside an IRA. So here's what our calculation does. We start out with that $4 million starting IRA value, and we're going to assume a certain annual growth rate. Here we're assuming a 6% annual growth rate net. And what we want to figure out here is how much can we draw down from the IRA over the course of 4 years, so that at the end of the 4th year, again, after assuming that 6% annual growth rate, we can get that value of the IRA down to 0, right? We're trying to drain 100% of the IRA's value out to reposition that inside a life insurance policy. So the mathematical answer to that is we would have to draw down $1,089,024 per year over the course of 4 years to draw that IRA value down to zero. Now, of course, when we're drawing that down from the IRA, income taxes are due on that. And in this particular case, we're showing the client being in California and having a 50.30% top tier income tax bracket, which means that that $1 million drawdown is going to result in about a $541,000 after-tax net value. So that $541,245 is going to be the actual premium that's going to go into the life insurance policy. And then the remainder of that would be sent off to Uncle Sam to pay the taxes. So based on that $541,000 drawdown, that again is what's going to fund the first 4 years of premium into the life insurance policy. So there we have 541, 541, 541, 541. And then in the 5th year, that $1.4 million, that's the same amount that we would have had to have the ILIT buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan in the previous option design that we put together. So to be fair, we're going to use that same $1.4 million of after-tax dollars, and we're going to inject that in the form of non-finance premium in policy year 5. And then starting in year 6, we're going to start the delayed premium financing option here. We're going to borrow $2.5 million in annual premium in years 6 through 10. We are going to accrue the interest on that, which is not overly leveraged because we've got already 5 years of non-financed premium entering the contract. And if you look over in column 9 to the far right, there's zero collateral needed, again, because we've loaded 5 years of non-financed equity premiums into the policy. Then we're going to exit the premium financing loan in year 11, and that policy is going to last all the way out until age 120. Now, this is really important here. In this particular scenario, we are not using the product we used in the previous design where we're using the profit sharing plan and the LLC. Here, we're actually using an IUL. In this particular case, we want to make sure that the policy lasts all the way until end of life in the same way that we were designing the policy in the previous design. In the previous design, we were using a current assumption UL product that's designed very, very specifically within the product design as we're really custom building that product. So again, the previous design, we used a very special design on a current assumption UL product. On this one, we're using more of a standard IUL product. But the reason why I bring up the highly detailed design of the product is if you turn on certain riders or turn off certain riders, if you use certain blends, if you use certain levers, you pull certain levers within these products, sometimes you'll get a higher death benefit up front. However, the policy will lapse earlier than age 120 and sometimes even earlier than age 100. If you use a lower death benefit in the very beginning, you end up with a higher death benefit later on, and it will last all the way until end of life. So the reason I bring this up is I have seen designs that look so good where the death benefit is so much greater than what I'm showing you here. However, what they don't tell you is that policy is scheduled to lapse when the client is under age 100. I saw one case where the design was very, very deceptive because it looked so good, and what they didn't tell you was the policy was literally designed in the carrier illustration to lapse at age 90. Now, why would an advisor do that? I mean, I can think of a half a dozen reasons why they might do that for their own personal benefit, but that is clearly not a responsible design that's going to benefit the client. So again, the policy design is so important. And then when you add the premium financing component into it, the financier really has to be a product technician and really has to understand the product chassis and how it works, why it works, when it doesn't work, the different crediting methodologies, the charges, schedules, things like that become so important. So in this case, again, I've got the full ledgers to walk through with you if you really want to see the ultimate detail. Again, this is just kind of a broad overview so you can understand the general concept. But on the summary page here, the graph on the right-hand side, this is what we looked at in the previous design. Again, we were looking at the green line up there was the previous design. In this design, which is the yellow line there, this is the premium finance life insurance conversion. Starts out with a little bit less net face amount, then increases to substantially more than the original green line one. But then the net value starts to decrease and then hits a low point and then starts to increase again. So if you look at these, you say, well, why would someone do the premium finance life insurance conversion model as opposed to the original green design, I'll call it, right? The reason is that the client might say, hey, I love the fact that we're getting so much more out of the green option. However, I don't want to mess around and have to start a new LLC and then have to start a new profit sharing plan and have a TPA administrated, et cetera, et cetera. We just want something simple. Well, the reality is, if they want something simple and they don't want to set up the new entities, et cetera, the premium finance life insurance conversion still nets out a much greater outcome after tax than the traditional IRA, which is the blue line, as well as the Roth IRA, which is the orange line. Both the green line and the gold line there outperform the more traditional non-insurance ways of handling that IRA value. So those are, again, two very unique designs. There's a third design here I'm going to talk about, and this is this concept that I guess I would call it non-premium financing, premium financing, and I'll kind of explain what that means. In this scenario here, the reason I say it's non-premium financing is we could actually finance the taxes as opposed to financing the premiums. So in this scenario here, again, there's the starting IRA value of $4 million. And we're going to assume that same 6% annual growth rate. And again, we're going to draw down from the IRA and we're going to draw that all the way down to zero over the course of 10 years as opposed to 4 years. Again, so this is a very, very different design here. In this scenario here, the drawdown amount would be $512,000 a year. That's going to go into the life insurance policy, but the taxes are still due on that, right? So if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, at the same 50.30% tax rate on that $512,000 annual drawdown, the client is going to owe Uncle Sam $257,000 in taxes each year on that $512,000 drawdown. So they could finance those taxes. In other words, they could borrow that $257,000 a year each year for 10 years from a lender. Similar to the way we would structure a premium financing loan. In this scenario here, we would exit the loan using the policy value in the 18th policy year. If we do this, this is what it looks like. So the purple line there is the net value that would go to generation 2 if they take the drawdowns from the IRA each year over the course of 10 years, draw the IRA all the way down to zero, put the full amount of the drawdown into the life insurance policy, and then finance the taxes due, right? So again, in the purple line there is no financed premium entering the life insurance policy. That is funds that are taken directly out of the IRA, and then the financing side comes in where they're financing the taxes due. So again, if we look at the blue line versus the orange line versus the gold line versus the purple line versus the green line, overall, I would say, especially this couple's, the husband is age 66 and the wife is age 59. If you go out 30 years, that would put the wife at age 88. And the graph on the right-hand side shows years 1 through 30. If the goal was to generate the maximum amount going to generation 2 at life expectancy, I would say the green line, mathematically speaking, is going to generate the greatest value going to generation 2. So why would a client do the purple line or even the gold line? Again, all has to do with how much complexity does the client feel comfortable with? If they don't mind a little bit more complexity and they want to maximize the amount going to generation two at life expectancy, then I would say do the green line all day long. That's the one with the new LLC and the profit sharing plan and the ILIT. If they don't want to go through all that, I would say, it's pretty close at life expectancy all the way out to the 30th year between financing the taxes versus doing the premium finance life insurance conversion, where you just pay the taxes out of the drawdown. But if we look in the early years, the premium finance life insurance conversion has a lot more going to generation two. And that would put the younger wife, say between the ages of 59 and about 69 or so, in a better position if they just did the premium finance life insurance conversion. Again, that's the gold line. So the reason I like having options is you never know what the client's appetite is or tolerance is for complexity, administration, and things like that. Not that the green line involves a lot of administration on the client's part. I mean, the TPA is doing all the administration behind the scenes. But again, some clients like things to be simpler and they don't mind a lesser outcome if they can keep it simpler. And other clients don't mind a little bit more complexity because what they're really trying to do is maximize the amount going to generation two. So again, this is an overall kind of a broad summary of all of these different options. We can model out each one for a prospective client if you want us to talk to your client about what their options are. And so that is really the IRA Bailout Plan platform. We can show kind of a side-by-side comparison with all of these different options here. So at this point right here, I'm going to continue. But if you're not a detailed person and you don't want to see all the detail of all the ledgers and all the moving parts and how this is all put together, you can stop watching this webinar right now. However, if you are a detailed person and you want to see the ledgers of each one of these different designs, that's what I'm going to go into next. So again, I'm going to warn you, the rest of this webinar is going to be very, very detailed for math nerds like me.
A lot of boring math later.
Okay, let's go ahead and start. Again, if you're not a detailed person, go ahead and stop watching the webinar right now. This rest of this webinar is going to drive you crazy with all the details. But if you like the details, here we go. So this is the IRA Bailout Plan, option number one, right? This is the green line scenario here. So up top there on the left, that is the $4 million IRA starting value. Of that $4 million, we are then going to fund annual premiums of the life insurance policy in the amount of $1 million per year. So that's the $4 million. At this point, the IRA has been transferred into the profit sharing plan, and now we're buying the life insurance policy inside the profit sharing plan. So 4 years of non-financed $1 million annual premiums. Okay, up next here in year 5, we're now going to buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan using an ILIT. So the policy value at that point is $1.4 million. Now this is where that deep discount comes in we were talking about earlier. We repurposed $4 million of the IRA and replaced it in the profit sharing plan with only $1.4 million. So that's where that 60-something% discount comes in. Very, very advantageous to use this particular product. Again, the design of it is very, very, very specific, not only from the premium financing side, but also just the basic core chassis design of this with the right riders, et cetera, et cetera. So that happens again in policy year 5. Policy year 6 is when we're going to finance an additional $2 million of premium, just one time, right? 1 year. At this point, the policy is owned inside the ILIT, outside the taxable estate, and that policy has been replaced with $1.4 million of cash inside the profit sharing plan. Now, at that point, we are going to start paying for the interest due on that premium financing loan, right? That $2 million premium financing loan balance. And the way we're going to fund that is we're going to draw down a little over $200,000 from the profit sharing plan value. Again, that was the $1.4 million that went in to buy the policy out of the plan, right? We're going to start to draw down $200,000 a year from the profit sharing plan. Now, those $200,000 drawdowns are subject to income taxes, right? So the after income tax value is going to be 100,000. That's how we're servicing the loan. Now there comes a point where, in this case, in policy year 19, we have drawn down the profit sharing plan value to be as low as possible, so low that we cannot continue to draw down that 200,000 from the profit sharing plan. So at that point, the client could, if they wanted to, either pay the interest out of pocket using after-tax dollars, gifting those dollars to the ILET, or they could accrue the interest. Now, at this point, we have already serviced interest payments for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years. So accruing the interest 14 years later is not such a bad thing, not over leveraged. Okay, and so in this scenario here, after accruing that interest, again, that was assuming that that IRA was growing at 6% per year. In this scenario here, the remaining profit sharing plan value would still be subject to 40% in estate taxes. But again, we've drawn down that profit sharing plan value to be as low as possible to get everything outside the taxable estate to be as efficient as possible. Generation 2 would also be subject to income taxes on that inherited profit sharing plan. And so with Generation 2, they would get the net death benefit of the life insurance policy plus the remaining after-tax net value of the profit sharing plan. You add those two numbers together, and what you get is that far right-hand column. And that is the amount that would go to Generation 2 net of taxes. So in that previous graph that we showed you, this graph right here, so this green section right here, those are the same values carried over from that previous slide. These green values equal this green line that we're looking at right here. Okay, so that is the IRA Bailout Plan option number 1 with the profit sharing plan and the ILET and the LLC. Okay, so sometimes what clients want to know is, well, what would happen if I just did nothing? What would happen if I just left the money in the traditional IRA like everybody else? I think that's a logical question. So let's go ahead and model this out here. Again, lots of detail.
A lot of boring math later.
But there's the $4 million starting IRA value. In this scenario here, we are assuming a 6% annual growth rate, right? So that would be the pre-tax IRA value. But remember, the IRA is subject to both estate tax when Generation 2 inherits it, and then the Generation 2 is also going to get hit with income taxes, which means that that is the after-tax net value that will go to Generation 2 if this couple were to die in any one of those given years. In a traditional IRA, they are going to be subject to RMDs, right? They have to take the minimum drawdown at a certain point. So we're modeling the RMD amounts here. And the question then is, well, what happens to the RMDs, right? They take the RMD drawdown, they got to pay tax on that. And then what we're going to show is those after-tax RMD values reinvested in a taxable investment account. So we're going to add those two columns together when it comes to seeing what is going to go to Generation 2, right? The after-tax IRA value plus the reinvested RMDs in a taxable investment account. Now there's a third asset here we're going to add to this overall value, and that's column 11 right here. And what that is, that's that same $1.4 million that we had to use to buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan, right? Remember that in the first IRA bailout plan option there? $1.4 million goes from the ILET into the profit sharing plan to buy the policy out. Well, to be fair, we had to include that same $1.4 million in this design here, where Generation 2 of the client will get the after-tax value of the IRA plus the RMDs reinvested in the taxable investment account, plus this $1.4 million growing at the same 6% rate of return in a secondary after-tax investment account. So we add up this column, and this column, and what we get is the far column on the right-hand side. So again, if we go back to the graph that we looked at on a couple of slides earlier, this guy right here, this blue column here on the left-hand side is the same as the blue line here on the right-hand side, and that was the model we just showed there. Keeping the money where it's at in the traditional IRA, taking the RMDs, paying the taxes on the RMDs, reinvesting them into a taxable investment account that's still inside the taxable estate, and then also having that $1.4 million account starting in the same year where we bought the policy out of the profit sharing plan in this green line option up here. Again, so if you look at the comparison, leaving the money in the traditional IRA, not so hot. And neither is the Roth conversion, by the way, which is kind of the standard go-to strategy that most folks will use once they figure out they're going to get double taxed. So let's talk about the Roth IRA, right? The Roth conversion, and we'll show you the ledger, the detailed ledger on this.
A lot of boring math later.
So there's the same $4 million IRA, right? You're going to roll that over into a Roth. However, we're going to get chopped at income taxes right off the bat. So they're going to lose half of that. So the beginning of year Roth value after they pay the taxes and they roll it over is going to be just over 1.9 million. Now we're going to assume the same 6% annual growth rate within this newly formed Roth IRA. This is still inside the client's taxable estate, so that's still going to be taxed at 40% when Generation 2 inherits it, which is going to equal this amount here. Now, again, to be fair, we're going to use that same $1.4 million that we used in the green line option to buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan, and we're going to have this growing in a taxable investment account that is also inside the client's taxable estate. So if we add these two columns together, again, the after-tax Roth value at death plus this additional taxable investment account, we're going to get the far right-hand column here, and that is the amount that would go to Generation 2 if we took the $4 million IRA and did a Roth conversion. Again, if we go back to the comparison graph comparing all of these, here it is here. Again, this orange line right here, that's the Roth conversion value, which is the same value in the orange column here. Again, I'm going to keep coming back to this graph here. It's paints such a clear picture to the client in terms of what their options are and really how inferior leaving the money in the traditional IRA is, as well as doing a Roth conversion. Largely because there is no life insurance leverage in either of those options, and 100% of the value is still trapped inside the client's taxable estate, right? That's one of the beautiful things about using a life insurance policy and an ILIT is it removes the asset out of their taxable estate, puts it in the ILIT, uses the death benefit, which is going to give you a multiple return, and then leveraging premium financing into it, which increases the net death benefit value even greater. And all of these examples I'm going over here are assuming literally the exact same client dollar amount / out of pocket, right? All we're doing is repositioning those funds. Okay. Let's go back to the premium finance life insurance conversion.
A lot of boring math later.
This is the one where we take drawdowns from the IRA, pay the taxes on the drawdowns, take the net amount, and use that to fund a life insurance policy. So in this scenario here, again, same $4 million IRA value. We're going to assume a 6% annual growth rate, and we're going to draw down just over $1 million per year for 4 years. We're going to pay the income taxes due, and the remaining amount is what's left over. $541,000 in non-finance premium goes into the life insurance policy. Starting in year 5 right here, that's the same $1.4 million that we used in the green line option, again, to buy the policy out of the profit sharing plan into the ILIT. So we're going to use the same $1.4 million, but we're going to reposition this $1.4 million into the life insurance policy in the form of non-financed premium. Premium financing starts in year 6. So in addition to these non-finance premiums, we now have $2.5 million in finance premium going into the policy each year over the course of 5 years. Again, policy years 6 through 10. Okay, we're going to accrue the interest on that annual premium that we're borrowing. Now, why can we get away with this? Well, largely because we funded the first 5 years of this premium with non-finance premium. Okay, and then we're going to pay off the premium financing loan in policy year 11. So the nice thing about this from a premium financing standpoint is that one, the premium financing years only fit within a 5-year window. So we're in and out of the bank loan in 5 years because we're exiting the premium financing loan in policy year 11, which is actually year 6 of financing. So very, very efficient. So here's what it looks like on a policy ledger form here. So there's the policy premiums in years 1 through 5. They're all non-finance premium. And then in year 5 there, that's that 1.4 million we injected that we talked about. Premium financing starts in year 6. We're going to borrow $2.5 million per year in year 6 through 10. We're going to accrue the interest, and then we're going to pay off the loan in policy year 11. So very, very efficient. Okay, if we go back here again to the summary slide with the graph comparison here, this gold line here is what represents that premium finance life insurance conversion we just went over. Again, that's the gold column here and the gold line. Again, this graph right here shows the client what would go to generation 2 if they were to die in any one of these years. We're showing a 30-year window here. The husband 30 years out would be age 95. The wife would be age 88. And even though we're only showing a 30-year window here, again, all of the policies that I designed personally are designed to last all the way out to age 120. None of this, oh, don't worry, the client will die before age 100 or age 95. I don't go for that. That's way too risky, in my opinion. We want to make sure the policy is going to be there for them, even if they live a much longer life than expected, and also if the policy performs worse than expected, right? We want to make sure this thing lasts all the way out to the very end. Okay, and lastly here, this is the option where the client decides to finance the taxes, not finance the premiums, but finance the taxes.
A lot of boring math later.
So here we go. $4 million IRA starting value, right? We're going to assume a 6% annual growth rate. We're going to draw down $512,000 per year over the course of 10 years, and that's going to draw the account down to 0 based on that 6% growth rate assumption. Okay. In this scenario here, we're going to finance the taxes due. Remember, each year the client draws down $512,000 from their IRA, they're going to owe taxes on that. So we're going to finance the taxes. We're going to borrow the taxes from a third-party lender, right? A bank. Okay, in this scenario here, we're also going to have that $1.4 million, the same amount that was used to buy out the policy from the profit sharing plan by the ILET. And we're going to use that $1.4 million to pay for the interest due on the remaining balance of those taxes that we financed. So in years 1 through 5, we're growing that loan amount to the bank because we're borrowing the money to finance the taxes, and we're accruing the interest in the first 4 years. So starting in the 5th year, we're servicing the interest. We're paying the interest out of pocket by using that $1.4 million that we talked about earlier. Okay? And that's what's going to service the interest due each year. We're going to draw down that $1.4 million pretty darn low so that by year 18, we are going to exit the loan. At that point, there's very, very small loan amount left over. It's only $185,000. And then we're going to use the policy value to pay off that loan at the very end. So very, very efficient. Here's what it looks like on a policy ledger. There's the $512,000 in annual premium. Again, all non-financed, right? They're only going to borrow the taxes due from drawing down that $512,000 from the IRA. We're going to accrue the interest on those borrowed funds in years 1 through 4. And then in years 5 through 17, we're going to pay the interest due using that $1.4 million account that we talked about. And then we're going to pay off the loan in policy year 18. Okay, and when we do that, again, going back to this graph here, the purple column here and the purple line shows the amount that would go to generation 2 net after taxes. If they do the drawdowns and they put in 100% of those drawdowns into the policy, then they borrow the taxes due from a third-party lender to pay Uncle Sam his taxes due each year. So I know that's this last half of this webinar, highly detailed. There's a lot of ledgers, a lot of numbers.
Boring.
We want to make sure that not only the advisor knows, but the client knows that we have done the due diligence. We've done the behind the scenes homework. We have extensively modeled and compared all of their options side by side to the point when they make the decision of what options to go for. They know that mathematically speaking, that decision was a prudent decision. It was a well-vetted decision, that they understand all the moving parts. And most importantly, that the option that they go with, it was really custom designed specific to their needs, their wants, their preferences, their risk tolerance, their tolerance for sophistication and complexity in terms of the overall setup. That this was really designed specifically for them.
The Japanese are crazy about perfection.
So I hope you found value in today's webinar. I even have a 14-minute, what we call long-form copy video that you can use to pique a client's interest as well. It's a little long and kind of redundant for my own personal taste, but marketing research has shown that this long-form copy really produces excellent results for the masses. In fact, the repetitive nature of this format has proven to work better than short form copy. Again, when we're talking about mass marketing, personally, I'm not a fan of this kind of format as a consumer, but market research has proven me wrong. So if you're interested in getting a taste of what this type of content looks like, feels like, keep watching this video until the end of this webinar. It's only 14 minutes more. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. And again, if you want to see this marketing message, here it is. So enjoy the rest of this video as well as the rest of your day. If you have a net worth of $20 million or more, and your IRA is worth over $1 million, then you need to watch this short video. If you haven't heard, the new estate tax laws are changing in the year 2026. And with these changes, the government will be able to seize with ease 40% of your real estate assets, 40% of your investments, 40% of your business assets, and up to 70% of your IRA. But first off, if your net worth is less than $20 million, this strategy does not apply to you. Also, if your IRA is worth less than $1 million, this strategy is not right for you either, and you can stop watching this video. But if you are worth over $20 million and your IRA value is over $1 million, you're definitely going to want to watch the rest of this video. In the next few minutes, I'm going to teach you exactly how you can stop the government from confiscating 60% to 70% of your IRA. It's a strategy that has historically been reserved for elite Americans with net worth amounts over $100 million. If you're like most of the clients I've worked with over the last decade, you probably have a team of advisors that may include a CPA, an estate planning attorney, and an investment advisor. But you may still have a sneaking suspicion that you're missing something, and that maybe your IRA is going to get taxed at the maximum rate. I was just like you. I completely entrusted my retirement plan to my financial advisory team. But they lost me over $600,000, and they cost me $330,000 in taxes. It took me 3 years to figure this out, and all along, I had no idea. Now, you may be in a similar situation right now and not even realize it. If this happens to you, your family is going to get stuck with a giant tax bill. That's why I created this short video. If I can get you qualified for this tax secret that has been reserved for centimillionaires, I might be able to save your family 60 to 70% in taxes on your IRA. I'm Darren Sugiyama, founder and CEO of Lionsmart Capital, and I need you to hear my story. When I was in my mid-30s, I found myself making more money than I ever thought I'd make. I had built one of the most successful employee benefits consulting firms in the country. We were doing a little over $37 million in annual sales by my seventh year. So I hired a so-called financial advisor that came highly recommended by the vice president of a giant health insurance company. He's the number one guy in Orange County, I was told. I met him in his fancy Newport Beach office, and he pitched me this tax strategy that was supposed to save me millions of dollars in taxes. It included a complex web of 17 life insurance policies on me and my employees. It was confusing as heck, like most tax strategies are, but because he came highly recommended and because I was young and I trusted him, I pulled the trigger. Oh, big mistake. 3 years later, I decided to get a second opinion, so I hired a tax attorney to do an internal audit and explain to me what this so-called financial advisor had actually done. And that's when I found out just how screwed I actually was. I just wanted a second opinion, so you can imagine to my surprise when he told me that the IRS was going to come after me for $330,000. And that's on top of the $600,000 I had already put into the program. The attorney also told me that the $600,000 I put into this program was all gone. Long story short, that mistake cost me $930,000 in just 3 years. But what the attorney said next, it made me sick to my stomach. He said, I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do for you. My jaw literally hit the ground. How could this have happened to me? I was smart and educated. I was a successful businessman, but I was unaware of how the tax laws worked. Now, maybe losing $930,000 isn't a lot of money for you, but that was a lot of money for me at the time. I felt like I got sucker punched right in the gut. I was so angry. I was embarrassed. I felt violated. But worst of all, it made me feel like a naive fool. It felt like nobody was looking out for my best interests, even my so-called financial advisor. My CPA didn't catch this mistake either, and once the damage was done, there was nothing I could do about it. I begrudgingly paid the IRS and the state of California the $330,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest, and the $600,000 I put into the plan was gone. Again, he lost me $930,000 in 3 years. I thought my financial advisory team was supposed to protect me, but I didn't know what I didn't know. This is why I do what I do, helping people like you, preventing them from making mistakes when it comes to tax planning. So I decided to turn my lemons into lemonade. Since that gut-wrenching experience, I have studied the tax code and worked with some of the best CPAs and estate planning attorneys in the entire country. And today, they send their high net worth clients to me to protect them from taxes. Losing $930,000 simply because my financial advisory team wasn't fully aware of this issue is what ultimately made me one of the most knowledgeable advisors in this industry, and that's why I made this video for you. When I work with clients, I educate them and their current team of advisors on how to restructure and reposition assets so less ends up in Uncle Sam's pocket and more ends up in your family's pocket. As an example, if your estate is worth $20 million above the exemption limit, and you have a $1 million IRA, when you and your spouse pass away, your kids will owe 40% in estate taxes, which is $400,000 on your IRA alone. And that doesn't even include the $8 million they'll owe in taxes on the rest of your estate. But it gets worse. Your kids will also owe income taxes on the remaining $600,000. And even if they live in a state with no income tax, after 37% in federal income taxes, your kids will only end up with $378,000 of the $1 million IRA. That means 62% will go to Uncle Sam. Now that's $622,000 of your $1 million IRA. Ouch. But don't worry, I have the solution. It's a solution that families worth over $100 million often use. They'll have a family office, which is a firm that exclusively manages one family's assets. The IRA Bailout Plan uses a proprietary family office platform, but unlike a family office client, you don't need to be worth $100 million. Our platform utilizes a combination of a special kind of tax-exempt trust, a special purpose LLC arrangement, and the ability to roll over IRA funds into a tax-exempt structure outside your taxable estate. It maximizes the amount that goes to your kids and minimizes the amount that goes to Uncle Sam. That last part should put a smile on your face. So now that I've shared with you the idea of the IRA Bailout Plan and how using this unique platform can keep Uncle Sam's hand out of your family's pocket, the next step is to set up a time for you and I to chat on a Zoom call to see if you qualify. It'll take less than 15 minutes of your time, but it's 15 minutes that can change your family's future from a tax-saving standpoint. We'll talk about your current situation, who you have on your estate planning team, and uncover whether or not the IRA Bailout Plan is right for you. And lastly, just to give you an idea of whether or not it's worth meeting with me for 15 minutes, here's an example of how much of a difference I can make for you. Take this couple here. The husband is age 66 and his wife is age 59, and they had a $4 million IRA. The blue line there at the bottom shows what happens if they just keep that $1 million in their IRA, growing in value over the next 30 years. The orange line is what happens if they do a Roth conversion with that $4 million IRA, and the green line shows what happens if they roll over their $4 million IRA into the IRA Bailout Plan. So a huge difference. So if your estate is worth over $20 million and you have an IRA worth over $1 million and you'd like to keep Uncle Sam's hand out of your family's pocket, let's have a simple 15-minute chat. As I said before, I am a 12-time published author, and most of my books are finance related. My books are currently being distributed in 14 different countries, in addition to the USA. So again, you'll get me live and in person. I look forward to meeting you and showing you how I can save you a ton of money on taxes, minimize the amount of your IRA's value that will go to Uncle Sam, and maximize the amount going to your family. All I ask is that when we Zoom, make sure you're sitting in front of your computer because we'll be looking at some real numbers, and your iPhone screen is just too small to see what's important. So click on the button below to schedule your Zoom call with me now. Oh, and if you're still not convinced this is going to be worth your time, and you're still wondering if I'm the real deal, I get it. To you, I'm just some random guy you found on the internet. So let me share my background and my credentials with you. The specific type of work I do is so highly specialized. Financial advisors, CPAs, and estate planning attorneys actually bring their high net worth clients to me to execute this IRA bailout plan for them. In fact, if you'd like to see some of these professionals talking about their experiences of having me work with their wealthiest clients, here's a short 1-minute montage video of some of them talking about my work.
Darren's expertise and his quest for intellectual honesty and how he brings that approach to any kind of complex scenario, I think, are his greatest skill sets.
Being an accountant and being someone who's really quite technically minded, one of the greatest things that I've enjoyed with Darren is that he brings that so that the CPA, the really technical people can appreciate what he's doing for the client.
I will quote basically the response from one of my clients. She said, "Dave, I like Darren because he's not selling anything, he's educating, and that's important to me."
Darren has the highest level of integrity of anybody I've worked with in this industry.
Not only is he transparent, not only is he well researched, he has an unbelievable high standard, high code of ethics.
I couldn't give a higher recommendation for working with Darren Sugiyama and his team. He's honest, he's trustworthy, and has the highest integrity. And that's really means a lot to me as a father as well as a financial advisor trying to do what's best for my clients.
As I mentioned earlier, I've also written 12 books. some of which are currently being distributed in 14 different countries, in addition to the USA, including how I built a $37 million insurance agency in less than 7 years, premium finance life insurance, the key to effective estate tax planning, and the Takeo effect, which teaches how other successful Americans can avoid some of the biggest investment mistakes utilizing ancient samurai tactics, including investing in the wrong people. So again, just ask yourself if it's worth 15 minutes of your time to find out if I can save your family from losing up to 70% in taxes on your IRA. If you'd rather just give Uncle Sam 70% of your IRA, then perhaps the IRA Bailout Plan is not for you. If that's the case, no problem. And just remember, on a $1 million IRA, you could either let Uncle Sam confiscate $700,000 of it, or with the IRA Bailout Plan, you could avoid that giant tax problem and give Uncle Sam $0 of your IRA. The choice is yours.